The fluorescent lights of the Dallas County Courthouse flickered like dying stars as Jennifer Chen sat in her Honda Odyssey, the check engine light glowing amber on the dashboard. Through the cracked windshield, she watched them gathering, the real estate vultures, the corporate liquidation specialists, the people who turned bankruptcy into profit. They stood in tight circles beneath the Texas heat, pointing at auction notices, laughing at jokes she couldn't hear. She knew what they were saying. She'd heard it all week at her daughter's school, at the Target where she worked nights, at the food bank where pride had finally broken and necessity had won. Jennifer Chen thinks she can flip a corporate headquarters.
If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today.
Poor things finally lost it. That RadioShack building's been rotting since 2015. Nothing there but asbestos and lawsuits. Jennifer was 38 years old, and she was drowning. Not metaphorically. Actually drowning. The divorce had taken the house. The medical bills from Lily's appendicitis had taken her savings. The layoff from her accounting job had taken her dignity. Now she had $12,000 in her checking account, a 9-year-old daughter who deserved better, and an auction paddle that felt like a weapon she didn't know how to use. But she also had something else. She had rage. Not the hot, explosive kind. The cold, calculating kind that comes from watching your ex-husband buy a boat while your daughter wears shoes 2 sizes too small. The kind that makes you stop asking permission and start taking chances. The RadioShack corporate headquarters had been abandoned for 8 years. 5 stories of 1980s architecture in Fort Worth, once the command center of an electronics empire, now just another casualty of digital disruption. The building had passed through 3 failed redevelopment attempts. Environmental assessments had found mold. Structural engineers had found cracks. Everyone who looked at it saw problems. Jennifer saw 47,000 square feet selling for pennies on the dollar. She'd done her research. 3 weeks of late nights after Lily went to bed, scrolling through property records, bankruptcy filings, corporate dissolution documents. The building was structurally sound, the cracks were superficial. The mold was confined to one basement corner. And the property tax assessment valued the land alone at $890,000. Starting bid, $45,000. Her phone buzzed. Her sister, Rachel. "Are you seriously doing this?" "I'm in the parking lot," Jennifer typed back. "Jen, you can't afford to lose that money. That's all you have." "I can't afford not to try." She tucked her phone away, grabbed the folder of pre-approved loan documents she'd fought like hell to secure, and stepped into the heat. August in Texas felt like breathing through a wet blanket. Her blouse stuck to her back before she'd crossed the parking lot. The auction room smelled like old coffee and desperation. 50 people, maybe more. Jennifer recognized some faces from the research she'd done. Marcus Webb, who owned 6 commercial properties and drove a Tesla. Patricia Nguyen, a developer who specialized in turning abandoned buildings into luxury lofts. Tom Richardson, who attended every county auction like it was a sporting event. They all turned when she walked in. The whispers started immediately. "That's the Chen woman. Heard she's living with her sister. Didn't she used to work at Deloitte? What happened? This should be entertaining." Jennifer kept her head high and found a seat in the middle row. Her hands trembled as she opened her folder. She had exactly $45,000 to work with, the loan her sister had co-signed using her own house as collateral. If Jennifer lost this, she wouldn't just lose her chance. She'd destroy Rachel's life too. The auctioneer, a rail-thin man named Cal with a voice like gravel in a blender, stepped to the podium. "All right, folks. Item 218. Former RadioShack Corporation headquarters, 4,600 square feet across 5 floors, 2.1-acre lot, Fort Worth, Texas. Property sold as is, no warranties, no refunds. Outstanding property taxes of $67,000 due at closing. Starting bid, $45,000. Silence. Jennifer's heart hammered so hard she thought everyone could hear it. "Come on, folks," Cal said. "This is prime Fort Worth real estate. Who'll give me $45,000? More silence. Then Marcus Webb raised his paddle lazily. $35,000. Patricia Gwynn lifted hers. $38,000. Jennifer raised her paddle. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. $45,000. The room shifted. People turned to look at her fully now. Marcus Webb's eyebrow lifted. Patricia frowned. Someone in the back laughed. $45,000 to the lady in row 5, Cal said. Do I hear $50,000? Marcus raised his paddle. $47,000. $50,000, Jennifer said, her paddle already up. Marcus turned in his seat to look at her directly. His expression was somewhere between amusement and contempt. $55,000. Jennifer's mouth went dry. She only had $45,000. She'd stretched to get here. There was no more money. But she'd read the room wrong. She thought no one wanted this property. She thought she'd be the only bidder. Cal waited. $55,000 going once. Going twice. $60,000. The voice came from behind Jennifer. She turned to see a woman in her 60s, elegant in a navy suit, raising her paddle calmly. Marcus Webb shook his head and lowered his paddle. He wasn't here to get into a bidding war. $60,000, Cal confirmed. Do I hear $65,000? The room was silent. Jennifer sat frozen, her paddle lowered, her dreams evaporating in real time. $60,000 going once. Going twice. Jennifer stood abruptly. Her chair scraped against the floor. Everyone stared. I withdraw my bid, she said, her voice cracking. I apologize for wasting everyone's time. She grabbed her folder and walked out, her face burning, tears threatening but refusing to fall. Behind her, she heard Cal's gavel strike. Sold to bidder 347 for $60,000. Jennifer made it to her car before the tears came. She sat in the driver's seat, hands gripping the steering wheel, her whole body shaking. She'd been so sure. So certain this was her shot. And she'd failed before she'd even started. Her phone rang. Rachel. Jennifer couldn't answer. She couldn't face the disappointment, the "I told you so," the reality that she'd almost dragged her sister down with her. She was about to start the engine when someone knocked on her window. The woman in the navy suit. Up close, Jennifer could see she was older than she'd first appeared, mid-70s, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and eyes that missed nothing. Jennifer rolled down the window. Yes? My name is Caroline Foster, the woman said. Her voice was cultured, East Coast money that had migrated south. You were bidding on the RadioShack building. I was, Jennifer said, wiping her eyes quickly. But I couldn't afford it. Why did you want it? Jennifer blinked. I'm sorry. Most people in that room were investors or developers. They saw dollar signs or tax write-offs. You looked like you saw something else. What was it? Jennifer didn't know why she answered honestly. Maybe because she had nothing left to lose. I saw a second chance. I saw 47,000 square feet that could become something. I saw. Her voice broke. I saw a way to stop drowning. Caroline nodded slowly. I just spent $60,000 on a building I don't need. My late husband collected commercial real estate like some people collect stamps. I'm 76 years old. I have no children, no heirs who give a damn, and more money than I'll ever spend. You know what I saw in that room? Jennifer shook her head. I saw you stand up and walk away with your dignity intact. That's rare. Caroline pulled a business card from her purse. The building is yours if you want it. I'll transfer the deed to you for exactly what you were prepared to pay, $45,000. Plus the back taxes, of course.
If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this.
Consider the extra $15,000 I paid a gift for being brave enough to try. Jennifer stared at the card, her brain struggling to process what was happening. I don't understand. Why would you do that? Because 30 years ago, I was you. Divorced, broke, desperate. Someone gave me a chance I didn't deserve. I became a multimillionaire because of it. Caroline's expression softened. Pay it forward when you can. That's all I ask. She walked away before Jennifer could respond, leaving the business card in Jennifer's trembling hand. 3 days later, Jennifer stood in front of the RadioShack building for the first time as its owner. The structure loomed 5 stories tall, red brick with tinted windows, most of them cracked or broken. The parking lot was a patchwork of weeds and broken asphalt. The front entrance had been chained shut, and someone had spray-painted RIP RadioShack across the doors. It looked like a mausoleum. It looked perfect. Rachel stood beside her, Lily between them. Her daughter stared up at the building with wide eyes. Mama, is this really ours? It really is, baby. It's ugly. Jennifer laughed for the first time in weeks. Yeah. But we're going to make it beautiful. They spent the first week just exploring. The building was massive, far bigger than Jennifer had imagined from the outside. The ground floor had been the retail showroom, vast and empty, with display cases gathering dust and old promotional posters peeling from the walls. The second floor had been cubicle farms, hundreds of workstations where employees once sold electronics to stores across America. The third and fourth floors were executive offices, conference rooms, break areas. Everything was dated, dropped ceilings, fluorescent lights, carpet that probably remembered the Reagan administration. But the fifth floor was different. The elevator only went to 4. To reach the fifth floor, you had to find a stairwell hidden behind an unmarked door in the executive wing. Jennifer found it on day 3, partly by accident, partly because she was methodical about mapping every inch of her property. The stairwell was narrow, industrial, nothing like the main staircases. It led up to a steel door marked executive level, authorized personnel only. The door was locked, but Jennifer had been given a ring of keys at the property transfer. She tried 7 before one worked. The lock resisted, grudging, before finally clicking open. The fifth floor wasn't like the others. This was an office space. This was living space. A full apartment, maybe 2,000 square feet. Living room with leather furniture covered in dust. A kitchen with commercial-grade appliances. 2 bedrooms. A bathroom with a marble shower. And everywhere, evidence of someone who'd lived here recently, or at least more recently than 2015. Jennifer walked through slowly, her footsteps echoing on hardwood floors. In the living room, she found framed photographs on the mantel. A man in his 60s, balding, with thick glasses and an uncertain smile. In several photos, he stood in front of RadioShack stores, cutting ribbons, shaking hands. The CEO. What was his name? Jennifer pulled out her phone and searched. Julian Harding. Chief Executive Officer from 1998 to 2014. Resigned 6 months before the bankruptcy filing. In the bedroom, she found a closet full of expensive suits, still in dry cleaner bags. A nightstand with prescription pill bottles, sleeping pills, anxiety medication, antidepressants. All prescribed to Julian Harding, all expired in 2014. This had been his refuge. His private apartment in the building he controlled, hidden from employees, from his board, from the world. Why? Jennifer explored every room carefully. In the second bedroom, she found filing cabinets full of documents. Financial reports, legal papers, contracts. She'd come back to these. But something else caught her attention. The master bedroom floor. The entire room was hardwood, beautiful honey-colored oak. But in one corner, near the bed, a section approximately 8 feet by 8 feet looked different. Not dramatically, you'd miss it if you weren't paying attention, but the grain pattern was slightly off. The board sat just a fraction lower than the surrounding floor. Jennifer knelt and ran her fingers along the seam. There was a gap, deliberately created, hidden along the baseboard. She pressed the boards experimentally. They didn't give. She needed tools. "Mama?" Lily's voice echoed up the stairwell. "Where are you?" Jennifer stood quickly. "Fifth floor, baby. I'm coming down." That night, after Lily was asleep on Rachel's couch, Jennifer sat at her sister's kitchen table with her laptop, researching everything she could find about Julian Harding. Born 1951, Michigan. Electrical engineering degree from MIT. Worked his way up through RadioShack's management in the 1970s and 80s. Became CEO in 1998, right when the company was at its peak. Almost 7,000 stores, $5 billion in annual revenue, a household name. But then the decline. Amazon. Best Buy. Cell phone stores. The internet made RadioShack obsolete faster than anyone anticipated. By 2010, the company was hemorrhaging money. By 2014, it was over. Julian Harding resigned in September 2014, citing health reasons. The company filed for bankruptcy 4 months later. The headquarters was sold off as part of the liquidation. Harding himself died in May 2015, heart attack, at age 63. Jennifer found his obituary. No surviving family. No children. Estate valued at approximately $2 million, all of it tied up in failed RadioShack stock options that had become worthless. A man who'd spent his entire career building an empire, who'd lived long enough to watch it crumble, who'd died broke and alone. Jennifer closed her laptop, her mind racing. The hidden apartment, the locked 5th floor, the prescription medications. Julian Harding had been terrified. Not just worried about the company, terrified. Hiding. Living in his building because he couldn't face going home. Why? And what was under that floor? Jennifer returned to the building the next morning with tools borrowed from Rachel's garage. She brought Lily this time, no babysitter money, and set her up in the 1st floor showroom with coloring books and snacks while Jennifer climbed back to the 5th floor. In the master bedroom, Jennifer used a crowbar to pry up the first board. It came free with surprising ease, revealing a gap underneath. Not foundation. Not subfloor. Empty space. She pried up more boards, working methodically, her heart pounding. The section came up in panels, deliberately designed to be removable. And beneath it, steel. Reinforced steel plating. And in the center, a circular lock mechanism with a digital keypad, glowing faint red despite 8 years of abandonment. A vault. A panic room. A safe. Whatever it was still powered. Which meant someone had designed it to last. Jennifer knelt beside it, her hands trembling. The keypad showed 6 digits required for entry. She tried the obvious combinations. 111111, 000000. Harding's birthday, she'd seen it in the obituary. Nothing worked. She sat back, staring at the lock, her mind spinning. Somewhere in this building was a code. Julian Harding wouldn't have created this without leaving himself a way back in. The combination was here. She just had to think like a man who'd lost everything and desperately needed to hide something. Jennifer spent the next week searching. She went through every file in the 5th floor apartment. Every document in the filing cabinets. Every personal effect, every piece of paper. She found financial records showing RadioShack's decline in stark numbers. She found legal documents from lawsuits filed by investors. She found resignation letters from executives who'd seen the writing on the wall and jumped ship. But no code. No combination. No hint. Then, on day 8, Rachel made an observation that changed everything. "You're looking in the wrong place," her sister said. They were in the 5th floor apartment, Rachel helping organize the filing cabinets while Lily colored nearby. You keep searching his business files. But this wasn't business. What do you mean? Look at this place. Rachel gestured around the apartment. He didn't build this to protect corporate secrets. He built it to live in. To hide in. This was personal. Whatever's in that vault isn't RadioShack documents. It's his life. Jennifer froze. Rachel was right. The financial records, the legal papers, those had been left out in the open. The vault was hidden under his bedroom floor. What would someone protect that desperately? Not money, not directly. Harding had died broke. But what if he'd known it was coming? What if he'd converted his wealth into something portable before the bankruptcy, before the lawsuits, before the government could freeze his assets? Jennifer returned to the master bedroom with new eyes. She looked at the photographs on the nightstand. Julian with a woman, both younger, both smiling. His ex-wife, probably. They'd divorced in 2009, according to the obituary. Jennifer flipped the frame over. On the back, handwritten in faded ink, Catalina Island, June 1987. She photographed it, then continued searching. Every photograph, every personal item. Looking for dates, numbers, anything that might mean something to a man terrified enough to build a vault under his bedroom floor. In the closet, she found a box of personal effects. Letters, cards, mementos. At the bottom, a leather journal with JH embossed on the cover. Jennifer sat on the dusty floor and opened it carefully. The first entry was dated January 1, 2012. The board wants me gone, it read in tight, anxious handwriting. They don't say it directly, but I can see it in their eyes. 27 years I've given this company, and they're preparing to throw me out like garbage. They don't understand. I built safeguards. I prepared. They think I'm just a corporate dinosaur, but I'm smarter than they know. I protected what matters. Jennifer's pulse quickened. She flipped through pages, reading entries about declining sales, angry shareholders, sleepless nights. Then, March 15, 2014. Completed the vault today. Cost $2.3 million, paid cash through shell accounts they'll never trace. Everything that matters is safe now. The combination is the only thing I trust, the one moment I was truly happy, before everything went wrong. If they take the company, if they destroy my reputation, if they leave me with nothing, at least they can't take this. The one moment he was truly happy. Jennifer looked back at the photograph. Catalina Island, June 1987. She pulled up a calculator on her phone. June 1987. June 87. But the vault required 6 digits. She flipped through more journal entries, looking for specific dates. Then she found it, almost at the end, dated September 20, 2014, his last day as CEO. Tomorrow I'll walk away from RadioShack forever. Everything I built, gone. But Catherine was right. She told me in '87 that money isn't happiness. She was right. I spent 27 years learning that lesson. 27 years. June 18, 1987. The day she said yes. The best day of my life, and I threw it away for stock options and quarterly earnings. June 18, 1987. June 18, '87. 6 digits. Jennifer's hands shook as she climbed back down to the master bedroom. She knelt beside the vault, took a deep breath, and entered the code. 0. 6. 1. 8. 8. 7. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a soft click deep inside the mechanism. The red light changed to green. The digital display showed, unlocked. Jennifer grabbed the handle, a recessed steel ring she hadn't noticed before, and pulled. The vault door was incredibly heavy, at least 8 inches of reinforced steel, but it moved on well-oiled hinges. Cool air rushed up from below, carrying the scent of metal and dust and something else. Leather. Paper. The smell of preserved things. Jennifer pulled out her phone's flashlight and pointed it down. A ladder descended into darkness. She couldn't see the bottom. "Lily," she called out. "Stay downstairs, okay? Don't come up here. Mama will be right back." "Okay, Mama." Jennifer descended the ladder slowly. 10 rungs. 15. 20. Finally, her feet touched concrete. She swept her phone's light around and gasped. The space was enormous, maybe 30 feet square, with a ceiling just tall enough to stand in comfortably. And it was full. Not with documents. Not with files. With wealth. Floor-to-ceiling shelving units lined 3 walls, and on those shelves sat organized, cataloged, preserved collections that made Jennifer's mind struggle to process what she was seeing. One entire wall held coin collections. Not spare change, rare coins in protective cases. Gold coins, silver coins, ancient currencies. She picked up one case, 1933 Double Eagle, $20 gold piece. Below it, a card, estimated value, $7.5 million. Jennifer's knees went weak. The next section held art. Not huge paintings, but smaller pieces, sculptures, ceramics, illuminated manuscripts in protective cases. Each one labeled with purchase information and authentication documents. A Tang Dynasty ceramic horse, $2.8 million. A Fabergé replica made by one of Fabergé's master craftsmen, $1.2 million. She moved deeper into the vault. One section held nothing but watches. Hundreds of them, vintage timepieces from Rolex, Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet. Each one worth tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Another section, first edition books. Hemingway, Fitzgerald, Steinbeck, Tolkien. Signed copies, pristine condition, professionally preserved. And at the back of the vault, the largest section, bearer bonds and stock certificates. Physical shares in companies, old-fashioned paper certificates that were as good as cash to whoever held them. Jennifer rifled through them with trembling hands. IBM, Coca-Cola, Apple, Microsoft. Stock purchased in the 1980s and 90s, before electronic trading, shares that had split and grown exponentially over decades. Against the far wall sat a desk, and on that desk, a leather portfolio. Jennifer opened it. The first page was an inventory, typed neatly, with values as of April 2014, 1 month before Harding died. Coin collection, $47.2 million. Art and antiquities, $33.6 million. Watches and timepieces, $18.9 million. Rare books, $9.4 million. Bearer bonds, $95.3 million. Stock certificates, $76.8 million. Total estimated value, $281.20 million. Jennifer sat down hard on the concrete floor, the portfolio slipping from her hands. $281 million. Hidden beneath a CEO's bedroom floor in an abandoned headquarters building. Preserved in secret while the company collapsed, while investors lost everything, while Harding himself supposedly died broke. She picked up the portfolio again with shaking hands. Behind the inventory was a letter, sealed in plastic, addressed simply, "To whoever finds this." Jennifer broke the seal carefully and read. "If you're reading this, then I'm dead, and you've bought this building for almost nothing. Congratulations on being smarter or braver than everyone else. My name is Julian Harding. I was CEO of RadioShack Corporation for 16 years. I watched the company I loved die slowly, killed by progress and arrogance and my own failures. By 2014, I knew it was over. The bankruptcy was coming. The lawsuits would follow. Investigators would freeze every asset with my name on it. So I moved it. All of it. Quietly, over 5 years, I converted liquid assets into portable wealth. Coins, art, bonds, stocks that still held paper certificates. I built this vault and filled it with everything I couldn't let them take. Not because I'm greedy. Because I failed everyone who believed in me. 25,000 employees lost their jobs. Investors lost fortunes. Shareholders watched their retirement savings evaporate. And I couldn't stop it. This collection was meant to be my redemption. My life insurance. The money I'd use to make things right after I'd lost everything else. But I got sick. Heart problems. Anxiety. Depression. And I ran out of time. If you found this vault, you took a risk others wouldn't. You saw potential where they saw ruin. That tells me something important about you. You're the kind of person who deserves a second chance. This wealth is yours now. Legally, morally, completely. It was hidden from probate, excluded from bankruptcy, kept separate from every corporate asset. When you bought this building, you bought everything in it and under it. But I'm asking you to do something with it. Don't hoard it. Don't hide from the world the way I did. Use it to build something. To help someone. To prove that failure isn't the end. Pay the debts I couldn't pay. Help the people I couldn't help. Be better than I was. And if you do that, then maybe, just maybe, my life won't have been a complete waste. Good luck. Julian Harding. April 27, 2015 inch. Jennifer read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. This man she'd never met, this CEO who'd died alone and afraid, had just handed her $281 million and a responsibility she didn't know if she could carry. She sat in that underground vault for almost an hour, surrounded by more wealth than she'd ever imagined, trying to process what this meant. For her. For Lily. For Rachel, who'd risked everything to give her the shot. Finally, she climbed the ladder back up, sealed the vault, and replaced the floorboards. She walked downstairs in a daze, her mind spinning. Mama? Lily looked up from her coloring book. Did you find treasure? Jennifer knelt beside her daughter and pulled her into a fierce hug. Yeah, baby. I found treasure. The kind that changes everything. That night, after Lily was asleep, Jennifer sat at Rachel's kitchen table with her sister and told her everything. Rachel listened in stunned silence, her wine glass frozen halfway to her mouth. When Jennifer finished, Rachel set down the glass carefully. $250 million. Give or take. Hidden in a building you bought for $45,000. Yes. Under a floor. Yes. Rachel stared at her sister. Then she started laughing. Not hysterical laughter, the kind that comes when reality breaks and you don't know how else to respond. You're the luckiest human being who ever lived. Or the most responsible, Jennifer said quietly. Did you read what he wrote? He wants me to help people. To fix what he broke. Jen, you can't fix RadioShack. It's gone. No. But I can help the people it left behind. Jennifer spent the next 2 days researching professional appraisers, security companies, and estate attorneys. She made lists, created spreadsheets, tried to turn overwhelming wealth into manageable tasks. On day 3, she called Caroline Foster, the woman who'd bought the building at auction and then given it to her. They met at a cafe in downtown Fort Worth. Caroline arrived in a Bentley but wore jeans and a casual blazer, looking like someone who'd stopped caring what people thought decades ago. You found something, Caroline said. It wasn't a question. Jennifer nodded. Under the 5th floor. Hidden vault. $281 million in portable assets. Caroline's expression didn't change. She simply sipped her coffee and nodded slowly. I suspected something like that might exist. That's why I bought the building when you couldn't. Jennifer blinked. You knew? I knew Julian Harding. Not well, but we ran in similar circles. Tech industry, corporate boards. About 6 months before he died, I saw him at a fundraiser. He looked terrible, sick, frightened. He pulled me aside and said something I never forgot: when everything falls apart, the only thing that matters is what you can carry. Caroline met Jennifer's eyes. I didn't know what he meant then. I do now. Why did you give me the building? Because I saw desperation in you, the same desperation Julian must have felt. And I thought, if there's anything hidden in that building, let it go to someone who needs it. Someone who'll use it right. Caroline smiled. Was I correct? Jennifer pulled out the letter Harding had written and slid it across the table. Caroline read it carefully, her expression softening. He wanted redemption, Caroline said quietly. He wanted to fix what he'd broken. But he ran out of time. She looked at Jennifer. You're his second chance. Don't waste it. Jennifer hired an attorney that afternoon, the same firm Caroline recommended. Michael Park, estate law specialist, corporate asset recovery expert. He was 52, Korean American, and looked like he could walk through walls if they stood between him and his client's interests. They met in his downtown Dallas office, all glass and steel and expensive furniture. Jennifer brought Rachel for moral support and laid out everything: the building purchase, the hidden vault, the inventory, Harding's letter. Michael listened without interruption, his fingers steepled, his expression neutral. When Jennifer finished, he nodded once. This is extraordinary, he said. And legally quite clear. It is? You purchased the property at a legitimate auction. Everything within the property boundaries, including undisclosed assets, transfers to you as the new owner. That's standard real estate law. Michael pulled up documents on his laptop. Julian Harding deliberately excluded these assets from RadioShack's bankruptcy. The vault was built and filled using personal funds, kept entirely separate from corporate finances. When he died, his estate went through probate, I checked. Total value approximately $1.9 million, mostly worthless stock options. This vault was never mentioned, which means either his estate attorneys didn't know about it, or Harding deliberately concealed it. So it's mine? Legally, yes. Morally. Michael paused. That's more complicated. Jennifer felt her stomach drop. What do you mean? RadioShack's bankruptcy created tens of thousands of creditors. Employees who lost pensions. Investors who lost fortunes. If they discover this vault exists, they could argue those assets should have been part of the bankruptcy estate. They could sue to reclaim them. Rachel leaned forward. But you just said the assets were kept separate. That they weren't corporate. They weren't. But perception matters in litigation. A CEO who claimed to be broke while hiding $280 million. That's a narrative that could win sympathy with a jury, regardless of the legal facts. Jennifer's hands clenched. So what do I do? Michael leaned back in his chair. You have 3 options. 1. Keep everything quiet, liquidate slowly, hope no one notices. Risky but possible. 2. Proactively disclose the discovery and prepare for legal battles. Expensive and time-consuming. Or 3. He smiled slightly, create a foundation. A foundation? A non-profit entity dedicated to helping people affected by RadioShack's collapse. Establish it immediately, transfer the assets into a trust, demonstrate that you're using Harding's wealth exactly as he intended, to fix what he broke. That removes the greed motive, shows good faith, and makes it much harder for anyone to challenge your ownership. Jennifer thought about the letter. Pay the debts I couldn't pay. Help the people I couldn't help. That's what he wanted, she said quietly. That's what I want too. Then we build a foundation, Michael said. Fast. The next 2 weeks moved at lightning speed. Michael's firm drafted articles of incorporation for the Harding Legacy Fund, a non-profit focused on supporting displaced workers from corporate bankruptcies, with a particular emphasis on former RadioShack employees. Jennifer worked with financial advisors to begin cataloging and authenticating the vault's contents. Every coin, every piece of art, every stock certificate had to be verified, appraised, documented. A coin specialist from Austin spent 3 days in the vault and emerged shaking his head in wonder. I've never seen a collection like this outside a museum. Conservatively, this is $50 million in numismatic treasures. An art authenticator from Houston verified the Tang Dynasty horse in Fabergé. These aren't just valuable. They're historically significant. Museums would kill for these pieces. A securities expert examined the bearer bonds and stock certificates. Some of these stocks have split multiple times. That Apple certificate from 1985? It's worth $12 million today. The Coca-Cola shares? Another $8 million. By the end of week 2, the total estimated value had grown to $295 million. Market appreciation had increased the collection's worth beyond even Harding's projections. Michael filed the foundation paperwork, created a board of directors, Jennifer, Rachel, Caroline Foster, 2 nonprofit specialists, and a former RadioShack executive who'd lost his pension in the bankruptcy, and established a trust to hold all assets. Then Jennifer did something risky. She called a press conference. The Fort Worth Business Journal came. Local news stations sent crews. A few former RadioShack employees showed up, curious about what this unknown woman could possibly want to announce about a dead company. Jennifer stood at a podium in the first-floor showroom of the old headquarters building, her daughter beside her, and told the truth. My name is Jennifer Chen. 6 weeks ago, I bought this building at auction for $45,000. I was broke, desperate, and taking a chance I couldn't afford to lose. What I found here changed my life. She explained the hidden vault, the wealth, Harding's letter. She didn't reveal the exact amount. Michael had advised against that, but she confirmed it was substantial and had been deliberately preserved for a specific purpose. Julian Harding wrote that he wanted this wealth to help the people RadioShack's failure hurt. Employees who lost jobs and pensions. Communities where stores closed and economic opportunities vanished. That's what I'm going to do. Jennifer announced the formation of the Harding Legacy Fund. She described its mission, providing job retraining assistance, pension supplementation for workers who'd lost retirement savings, small business grants for former RadioShack employees starting their own ventures. This isn't my money, Jennifer said, looking directly at the cameras. This is a second chance. For me, yes. But more importantly, for everyone RadioShack left behind. Julian Harding couldn't fix what he broke. But maybe, together, we can. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 24 hours, the story had gone national. NPR ran a piece. The Wall Street Journal published an analysis of corporate bankruptcy ethics. Former RadioShack employees flooded the foundation's new email with messages. Thank you for remembering us. I lost everything when the store closed. This gives me hope. My pension was cut by 70%. I've been working as a Walmart greeter at 68 years old. Please help. But not all the response was positive. 3 days after the press conference, Jennifer received a certified letter from a law firm in New York. The letter was from Quinn Davis, former chief financial officer of RadioShack Corporation, representing a group of shareholders who'd lost money in the bankruptcy. They were filing suit, claiming that Harding's vault constituted concealed corporate assets and should be distributed to creditors. Jennifer called Michael immediately. We expected this, he said calmly. Let them sue. We have documentation proving every asset was purchased with personal funds. Harding's estate was probated years ago. The vault was never listed because he legally excluded it. We'll win. How long will that take? Months. Maybe a year. But Jennifer, this is exactly why we created the foundation first. They're not suing you personally, they're challenging a nonprofit that's already helping people. That's a terrible look. Trust me, they'll settle. The lawsuit hit the news. Public opinion split immediately. Some people saw Jennifer as an opportunist who'd stumbled onto wealth she didn't deserve. Others saw her as a hero honoring a dead man's wishes. But the former RadioShack employees? They rallied. Within a week, more than 3,000 ex-employees had signed a petition supporting the foundation. They showed up at the courthouse when Quinn Davis filed his motion. They shared their stories with journalists. RadioShack destroyed my retirement, said Marcus Webb, who'd worked in inventory management for 23 years. I lost my house. My marriage ended. And where were the executives then? Now someone's trying to help, and they want to take that away too? Hell no. The court scheduled a hearing for 6 weeks out. In the meantime, Jennifer focused on the foundation. She hired a small staff, a program director, a case manager, and an administrative coordinator. She rented office space near the old RadioShack headquarters, which she was slowly renovating into the foundation's permanent home. The foundation's first program launched in week 3, Career Transition Assistance for former RadioShack employees. They partnered with local community colleges to offer free retraining in high-demand fields, IT, healthcare, logistics. 200 people enrolled in the first month. The second program focused on pension supplementation. RadioShack's bankruptcy had slashed retirement benefits for thousands of workers. The foundation created a hardship fund that would provide monthly payments to the most severely affected. Jennifer personally reviewed the first 100 applications. The stories broke her heart. People in their 70s working minimum wage jobs. Families who'd lost homes. Retirees choosing between medication and food. We can't help everyone, Michael warned her. The money isn't infinite. It's $295 million, Jennifer said. If we invest it properly, we can help people for decades. She was right. With conservative investment strategies, the foundation's endowment could generate $10 to $12 million annually in perpetuity. That was enough to make a real difference. The court hearing arrived on a cold October morning. Judge Patricia Mendoza presided, a no-nonsense jurist known for cutting through legal theatrics. Quinn Davis's attorneys argued that Harding had fraudulently concealed assets, that the vault should have been disclosed during bankruptcy, that the wealth belonged to creditors, not to Jennifer. Michael Park responded with documentation. He presented Harding's journal, showing the CEO's clear intent to keep the collection separate from corporate assets. He presented bank records proving every purchase was made with personal funds. He presented the letter Harding had written, explicitly stating the collection should transfer with the property. Most importantly, he presented affidavits from 500 former RadioShack employees supporting the foundation. Judge Mendoza listened to everything. Then she asked Quinn Davis's lead attorney one question. Mr. Harrison, are you arguing that your clients want this wealth returned to creditors for distribution? Or are you arguing they want it for themselves? Harrison hesitated. Your Honor, the bankruptcy estate would. The bankruptcy was finalized in 2017, the judge interrupted. The estate is closed. Assets were distributed. Claims were settled. Are you asking me to reopen a concluded bankruptcy based on assets that were never part of it? We're arguing they should have been, Your Honor. Judge Mendoza nodded slowly. Then you're arguing for a new interpretation of what constitutes corporate versus personal property. That's not a motion for summary judgment. That's a complex question of law that would require a full trial. She looked at Jennifer's table. Mr. Park, your client has established a nonprofit foundation? Yes, Your Honor. The Harding Legacy Fund. All assets have been transferred into an irrevocable trust. And the foundation's stated purpose is to assist people affected by RadioShack's bankruptcy? Correct, Your Honor. Then even if Mr. Harrison prevails on the question of whether these assets should have been corporate property, the practical result is the same: the money benefits former RadioShack stakeholders. The only difference is who controls the distribution. She looked at the courtroom. One path gives control to a nonprofit board focused on helping people. The other gives control to legal teams focused on maximizing recovery for the largest creditors. Which serves justice better? She didn't wait for an answer. Motion denied. This court finds that Ms. Chen acted in good faith, that she purchased the property legally, and that her establishment of a charitable foundation demonstrates intent to honor Mr. Harding's documented wishes. Case dismissed. The gavel struck. Jennifer couldn't breathe. Rachel grabbed her hand. Michael nodded approvingly. Quinn Davis stormed out without comment. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed. Jennifer made a brief statement. This was never about me keeping the money. It was about honoring what Julian Harding wanted, to help the people he couldn't help while he was alive. The foundation will continue that work. A reporter called out, "What happens to the building?" Jennifer smiled. "That's next." Over the next year, Jennifer transformed the old RadioShack headquarters into something extraordinary. The first floor became the foundation's offices and a community center. The second floor was converted into classrooms for job training programs. The third and fourth floors became co-working space for former RadioShack employees starting businesses, free for the first year, subsidized thereafter. And the fifth floor, Julian Harding's hidden apartment? Jennifer left it exactly as she'd found it, turned it into a museum exhibit about corporate failure and second chances. Visitors could see where Harding had lived and hidden, could read his journal entries, could understand the human cost of bankruptcy. The vault itself remained sealed, but Jennifer installed a glass floor panel so people could see the steel door below, could understand what had been hidden and why. The building opened to the public in March, 18 months after Jennifer had bought it. The dedication ceremony drew hundreds of people, former RadioShack employees, business journalists, nonprofit leaders, and Caroline Foster, who sat in the front row and beamed with pride. Jennifer stood at a podium and looked out at faces that had become familiar. "A year and a half ago, I was drowning. No job, no money, no hope. I bought this building because I was desperate and foolish and had nothing left to lose." She paused. Julian Harding was drowning too. He'd lost his company, his reputation, his reason for living. He built a vault and filled it with treasure, hoping that someday, someone would use it to fix what he'd broken. Jennifer's voice strengthened. "I'm not him. I didn't fail the way he did. But I understand failure. I understand desperation. And I understand that second chances don't come from treasure, they come from what we do with the chances we're given." By the end of the second year, the Harding Legacy Fund had provided career retraining for 1,247 former RadioShack employees, supplemented pensions for 892 retirees, given small business grants to 156 entrepreneurs, distributed $23 million in direct assistance. The foundation's model began attracting attention from other cities dealing with corporate bankruptcies. Detroit reached out about creating a similar program for auto industry workers. Youngstown asked about adapting it for steel workers. Jennifer hired staff to help scale the model. Within 3 years, the Harding Legacy Fund operated in 12 cities across 8 states. They'd helped more than 8,000 people. And Jennifer? She'd moved into a modest house in Fort Worth, nothing extravagant, just 3 bedrooms and a yard where Lily could play. She paid herself a reasonable salary as the foundation's executive director. The wealth stayed in the foundation, working for the people it was meant to serve. Caroline Foster visited regularly, watching Jennifer's work with obvious satisfaction. On one visit, she brought a gift, the original business card she'd given Jennifer in the courthouse parking lot. "Keep this," Caroline said. "Remember what desperation looks like. Remember what courage looks like. And remember that the best investments we make aren't in stocks or real estate, they're in people." 5 years after buying the building, Jennifer returned to the 5th-floor apartment alone. She stood in the master bedroom where the vault lay hidden beneath replaced floorboards, thinking about Julian Harding. She'd read his journal dozens of times now. She understood him better than she'd understood most people in her own life. His fear. His pride. His devastating realization that wealth couldn't fix the damage he'd caused. But it could help. That was the lesson. Money couldn't undo RadioShack's collapse, couldn't restore 25,000 jobs, couldn't reverse time. But it could help people rebuild. Retrain. Start over. Jennifer knelt and placed her hand on the floor above the vault. "I kept my promise," she whispered. "I hope you'd be proud." She stood and walked to the window, looking out over Fort Worth. The building that had been abandoned and worthless was now vibrant. Filled with people learning new skills, starting new businesses, finding new purpose. All because one desperate woman had been brave enough to bid on something everyone else had dismissed. All because one terrified CEO had built a vault and filled it with hope. And all because sometimes, the most valuable treasure isn't what we find, it's what we do with it. Jennifer Chen had been drowning. Now she was teaching others to swim. That wasn't just redemption for Julian Harding. It was redemption for everyone who'd ever lost everything and wondered if they'd ever find their way back. The foundation continued to grow. By year 7, they'd helped more than 15,000 people. By year 10, they'd become the national model for corporate bankruptcy recovery. Jennifer never forgot what Caroline Foster had told her, that someone had given Caroline a chance she didn't deserve, and that generosity had created a fortune. Caroline had passed that gift to Jennifer. And now Jennifer spent every day passing it forward to others. Lily grew up watching her mother transform desperation into purpose. She understood, perhaps better than most children, that wealth was a tool, not a destination. That courage mattered more than money. That the greatest achievements came from helping others find their own second chances. On Jennifer's 50th birthday, the foundation threw a celebration at the old RadioShack headquarters. More than 500 people attended, former employees the foundation had helped, staff members who'd joined the cause, business leaders who'd watched Jennifer turn a $45,000 gamble into a multi-million-dollar nonprofit. Rachel gave a toast. 12 years ago, my sister sat in a courthouse parking lot, broke and terrified, about to give up. She had $12,000 and a dream that looked like insanity to everyone else. Today, she's changed thousands of lives. Not because she found treasure, but because she chose to honor the man who hid it. Because she understood that second chances aren't just for us, they're for everyone we can help. Jennifer stood to respond, her voice thick with emotion. Julian Harding spent his last years terrified and alone, hiding in an apartment above his dying company, building a vault to protect wealth he hoped would someday fix what he'd broken. He died believing he'd failed. She looked around the room. But he didn't fail. His treasure found the right person at the right time. It saved my life. And then it saved thousands of others. That's not failure. That's legacy. The applause was thunderous. That night, after everyone had left, Jennifer returned one final time to the 5th-floor apartment. She'd done this ritual every year on her birthday, a private moment with the man who'd changed her life. She sat in the chair where she'd first read his letter and pulled out a copy she kept in her purse. The original was in the museum downstairs, but she carried this one always. "Thank you," she whispered to the empty room. "For trusting me. For building something that lasted. For understanding that sometimes the most important thing we leave behind isn't success, it's the opportunity for someone else to succeed." Outside the window, the Fort Worth skyline glittered. The building that had been forgotten, that had been worth only $45,000, was now valued at $8 million as the headquarters of one of the most respected foundations in America. But its real value couldn't be measured in dollars. Its real value was in the lives changed, the families saved, the people who'd been drowning and found someone to throw them a rope. Jennifer Chen had bought a building. But what she'd really bought was hope. And sometimes, that's worth more than all the treasure in the world. The foundation's 12th year brought challenges Jennifer hadn't anticipated. The national economy was struggling, unemployment rising, and more companies were filing for bankruptcy. The requests for help tripled almost overnight. Jennifer sat in her office on a rainy Tuesday morning, reviewing applications that had come in over the weekend. 847 new requests. Each one a story of loss, desperation, hope. A 58-year-old warehouse manager who'd lost his pension when his company dissolved. A single mother who'd worked retail for 15 years before her chain liquidated. A father of 3 whose manufacturing job disappeared when his plant closed. She couldn't help them all. The foundation's resources, while substantial, weren't infinite. For every person they assisted, 10 more waited. Her assistant, Marcus, a former RadioShack store manager who'd joined the foundation in year 3, knocked on her door. "Jennifer, there's someone here to see you." "No appointment, but she says it's urgent." The woman who entered was in her early 70s, thin and elegant despite worn clothing that had seen better days. She carried herself with dignity that poverty couldn't erase. "Miss Chen," the woman said, her voice soft but steady. "My name is Catherine Harding. Julian was my husband." Jennifer stood so quickly her chair rolled backward. "His wife?" "But I thought," the obituary said. "Ex-wife," Catherine corrected. "We divorced in 2009. But I was married to him for 23 years before that. I've been following your work with the foundation. I wanted to meet you." Jennifer gestured to the chairs by the window. They sat, and for a long moment, neither spoke. Rain pattered against the glass. "He mentioned you in his journal," Jennifer said finally. "He wrote that you told him money wasn't happiness. That June 18, 1987 was the day you said yes, the happiest day of his life." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "He remembered that?" "It was his vault code. The date he proposed to you. 061887. Catherine's hand went to her mouth. She was silent for several seconds, composing herself. "Julian and I loved each other very much, once. But RadioShack consumed him. Not the company itself, the fear of losing it. By the mid-2000s, he couldn't see anything else. Every dinner conversation was about quarterly earnings. Every vacation was interrupted by conference calls. He wasn't living anymore. He was just fighting to hold on." "Why did you divorce?" "Because I couldn't watch him destroy himself. I thought if I left, maybe he'd wake up, realize what mattered. But he didn't. He just got worse." Catherine looked out at the rain. "I heard he'd died broke. I attended the funeral, we'd remained friendly, despite everything. There were maybe 20 people there. A man who'd employed thousands, and 20 people came to say goodbye. It broke my heart." "He wasn't broke," Jennifer said quietly. "He just did everything so well that no one knew. When I saw the news about your discovery, about the vault, I understood. That was Julian, always planning, always preparing for catastrophe. He couldn't save the company, so he saved what he could and hoped someone else would use it better." Catherine met Jennifer's eyes. "You honored him. More than that, you understood what he was really trying to do. Thank you." Jennifer felt emotion welling up. "Did you come here for something specific?" Catherine pulled an envelope from her purse. "I found these in storage last month. Letters Julian wrote me after the divorce. I never opened them, I was too angry, too hurt. But after reading about the foundation, I thought you should have them. They might help you understand him better." Jennifer accepted the envelope carefully. Inside were 6 letters, all sealed, all addressed to Catherine at various dates between 2010 and 2014. "Read them when you're ready," Catherine said, standing. "And Ms. Chen? What you're doing with his legacy, it's the redemption he died hoping for. Keep doing it." After Catherine left, Jennifer sat alone with the letters for an hour before opening the first one. It was dated March 15, 2010, less than a year after their divorce. "Dear Catherine, I know you won't read this. You made it clear we needed space, and I respect that. But I need to write it anyway, even if these words never reach you. You were right about everything. The company isn't worth what I've sacrificed. The quarterly earnings, the stock price, the analyst ratings, none of it matters as much as the life we could have had. But I don't know how to stop. RadioShack is dying, and I'm dying with it, and I can't figure out how to let go without feeling like a failure. 20 years I've given this company. If it collapses on my watch, what was any of it for? I'm building something. A safety net, a backup plan. I can't save the company, but maybe I can save something. Maybe when it's all over, I'll have the resources to make things right. To help the people I'm about to fail. And maybe, this is probably foolish, but maybe I can use it to show you I learned. That I finally understand what you tried to teach me. I still love you. I know I have no right to say that. But it's true. Julian." Jennifer wiped her eyes and opened the second letter, dated November 2011. Catherine. The board met yesterday. They didn't say it explicitly, but I could see it in their faces. They're looking for my replacement. After everything I've built, they're going to push me out. I thought I'd be angrier. Instead, I just feel tired. The vault is almost complete. I've been moving assets systematically for 18 months. Coins, art, bonds, stocks. Everything portable, everything that can't be traced back to RadioShack. It's costing me millions in insurance and security, but it's the only plan I have left. Some of the younger executives mock me. They think I'm paranoid, old-fashioned, incapable of adapting. They're probably right. But I've seen what happens when everything collapses. I watched my father lose his business in the 1970s recession. I saw what poverty did to our family. I won't let that happen to me. Whatever else I lose, I'll have this vault. This insurance policy. This proof that I was smart enough to plan ahead. You'd tell me I'm still missing the point. You'd say security isn't the same as happiness. And you'd be right again. But I don't know how else to live. Julian. The third letter was dated April 2013. Catherine. I saw you yesterday at the grocery store. You didn't see me, or maybe you did and chose not to acknowledge me. Either way is fine. You looked good. Happy. You were with someone, a man I didn't recognize. He made you laugh, and I remembered when I used to do that. The company is crumbling faster now. We're closing hundreds of stores. Laying off thousands of people. Every decision I make destroys someone's livelihood, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. The market has moved past us. The world doesn't need RadioShack anymore. I think about those employees every night. People who gave us decades. People who trusted that RadioShack would take care of them. And we're betraying that trust. The vault is full now. $280 million, give or take. Enough money to live like a king for the rest of my life. And I feel nothing when I look at it. Just emptiness. You warned me this would happen. You said that if I made the company my identity, I'd have nothing left when it failed. I should have listened. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know you were right. Julian. Jennifer's hands trembled as she opened the fourth letter, dated October 2013. Catherine. I'm living in the building now. Full-time. I converted the 5th floor into an apartment. The board doesn't know, they think I'm just working late. Truth is, I can't face going home. The house is too big, too empty, too full of memories of the life we should have had. At least here, I have purpose. I can work 16-hour days, and no one asks why I'm not somewhere else. My doctor says I need to reduce stress. My blood pressure is dangerously high. The anxiety medication isn't working anymore. He recommended therapy, but what would I say? I'm a CEO watching my empire crumble and I've secretly hidden $280 million in a vault under my bedroom floor? They'd institutionalize me. Sometimes I wonder if I'm going insane. I sit in meetings with the board, discussing bankruptcy scenarios, knowing I've already protected myself. Knowing that while everyone else loses everything, I'll be fine. It makes me sick. But I don't stop. I can't stop. The vault has a purpose now, beyond just my security. I've decided, when this is all over, when RadioShack finally dies, I'll use that money to help the people we failed. The employees, the shareholders, the communities. I'll spend the rest of my life making it right. That's the plan, anyway. If I live that long. If my heart doesn't give out first. I wish you were here. You'd know what to do. You always did. Julian. The 5th letter was the shortest, dated April 2014. Catherine. I resigned today. Or rather, I agreed to resign. The board gave me the option to step down quietly or be publicly terminated. Some choice. 27 years, and it ends with a press release about pursuing other opportunities. No one believes it. Everyone knows I failed. The vault is sealed. I've written instructions for whoever finds it. Some poor bastard who buys this building for pennies will stumble onto $280 million and either think they've won the lottery or that they're losing their mind. I hope they're good people. I hope they understand what I was trying to do. I'm not going to use the money myself. I can't. Every dollar represents someone I failed. Every coin, every stock certificate, it's all stained with my mistakes. Let someone else have it. Someone who hasn't failed everyone who trusted them. I loved you, Catherine. That's probably all I did right. Julian. Jennifer set down the letter with shaking hands. Then she picked up the final envelope, dated May 2015, less than 2 weeks before Harding died. Catherine. I don't think I have much time left. My chest hurts constantly. The anxiety attacks are daily now. I can't sleep. Can't eat. Can't focus. My doctor says I need to check into a hospital, but I can't leave the building. What if someone finds the vault while I'm gone? What if the wrong person gets their hands on it? I think I'm dying, Catherine. And I'm so tired. The only thing keeping me going is the thought that maybe, somehow, this vault will matter. That the money I hoarded out of fear will end up helping the people I hurt. That some stranger will be braver than I was, smarter than I was, better than I was. I wrote you 6 letters and never sent them. I wanted you to know I understood, eventually, what you tried to teach me. But I learned too late. If you ever find out about the vault, about what I built and why, I hope you'll understand I was trying to do the right thing. I just didn't know how. I'm sorry, Catherine. For all of it. I wish I'd chosen you over the company. I wish I'd been the man you deserved. I love you. I always have. Julian. Jennifer sat in her office for a long time after reading the letters, crying quietly. This man she'd never met, whose wealth had changed her life, was more than just a failed CEO. He was someone who'd loved and lost. Who'd recognized his mistakes but couldn't find a way out. Who'd died hoping someone else could fix what he'd broken. She understood him now in a way she hadn't before. And she understood the weight of responsibility he'd placed on whoever found his treasure. That evening, Jennifer called an emergency board meeting. She brought Catherine Harding as a guest. The board, Rachel, Caroline Foster, 2 nonprofit specialists, and Marcus Webb, the former RadioShack VP who'd become an advocate for the foundation, listened as Jennifer read the letters aloud. When she finished, the room was silent. He suffered, Catherine said quietly. More than anyone knew. The vault wasn't just about money, it was about hope. Hope that even if he failed, someone else could succeed. That his life could mean something beyond bankruptcy and loss. Caroline Foster spoke first. We're doing what he wanted. But are we doing enough? We've helped 15,000 people, Marcus said. That's extraordinary. But 847 new applications came in this week alone, Jennifer countered. And we can only help maybe 100 of them. The needs are overwhelming. Rachel leaned forward. What if we expand the model? Not just RadioShack employees, all corporate bankruptcy victims. There are millions of people affected by company failures every year. What if the Harding Legacy Fund became a national resource? That would require significantly more funding, one of the nonprofit specialists said. Our endowment is healthy, but scaling to national reach? We'd need to raise additional capital. Caroline smiled. Or we leverage what we have differently. Jennifer, how much of the original vault contents have we liquidated? Jennifer checked her notes. About 60%. We've sold some art pieces, many of the bearer bonds, portions of the coin collection. We've kept the most historically significant items for the museum. What if we don't sell the rest? What if we use them as collateral for a much larger fund? We could partner with impact investors, foundations, corporate sponsors. Use Harding's treasure not as the only resource, but as the cornerstone of something bigger. The board spent 3 hours that night sketching out a vision. The Harding Legacy Fund would evolve from a regional nonprofit into a national movement. They'd create partnerships with other organizations, build a network of corporate bankruptcy support services, develop a comprehensive model for helping displaced workers transition to new careers. It was ambitious. Maybe impossible. But then again, everything about this journey had seemed impossible. Over the next 2 years, Jennifer traveled constantly, building alliances, sharing the foundation's model, recruiting partners. She spoke at conferences, met with legislators, appeared on national news programs. The story resonated. A single mother who'd been broke and desperate, who'd taken a $45,000 chance on an abandoned building, who'd found a fortune and used it to help others, it was the kind of narrative that cut through cynicism. Corporate partners started reaching out. Microsoft donated office software and equipment. Bank of America established a microloan program for former employees starting businesses. Dozens of community colleges created free retraining programs modeled on the foundation's curriculum. By year 14, the Harding Legacy Fund operated in 42 states. They'd helped more than 75,000 people. The model had been adopted internationally. Germany created a similar program for workers affected by industrial automation. Japan developed one for corporate restructuring victims. But Jennifer never forgot where it started. Every month, she returned to the old RadioShack headquarters in Fort Worth, walked up to the 5th floor, and spent time in Julian Harding's apartment. She'd maintained it exactly as she'd found it, adding only the letters Catherine had given her, displayed behind glass alongside his journal. Visitors to the museum came from around the world. They read Harding's words. They learned about his failures and fears. They saw the vault beneath the floor, still there, though empty now, its contents distributed to help the people Harding had worried about in his final years. The exhibit ended with a question printed on the wall: what will you build with your second chance? On the 15th anniversary of buying the building, Jennifer organized a massive celebration. They invited everyone the foundation had ever helped, thousands of people whose lives had been changed by Harding's hidden treasure and Jennifer's determination to honor his wishes. The event took place in a convention center, the old headquarters too small to hold everyone. Former RadioShack employees who'd started successful businesses. Retirees whose pensions had been supplemented, allowing them to live with dignity. Single mothers who'd received job training and now earned stable incomes. Catherine Harding attended, now in her late 80s but still sharp, still elegant. She sat in the front row beside Caroline Foster, the two women who'd made Jennifer's journey possible. Jennifer stood on stage and looked out at an audience of faces she'd never forget. 15 years ago, I had $12,000 and no future. I bought a building because I was desperate. I found a treasure because I was thorough. And I built a foundation because a dead man left me a letter asking me to be better than he was. She paused. Julian Harding spent his last years terrified that his life had been wasted. That his failures defined him. That he'd destroyed more than he'd built. Jennifer's voice strengthened. But he was wrong. His life wasn't wasted. His failures weren't the end of his story. Because what he built in secret, what he hid out of fear and hope, that treasure has transformed 75,000 lives. It's created a national model for corporate bankruptcy support. It's inspired similar programs around the world. Julian Harding's legacy isn't RadioShack's bankruptcy. It's this, Jennifer gestured to the audience. It's you. Every person who received a second chance. Every family that stayed together because someone helped them transition to a new career. Every retiree who can afford medication and groceries because their pension was supplemented. That's his legacy. And it's still growing. The applause was deafening. People stood, crying, cheering. Catherine Harding stood too, tears streaming down her face, finally seeing what her ex-husband had desperately hoped would happen. After the ceremony, Jennifer found Catherine in a quiet corner. The older woman was holding one of Julian's letters, the last one, dated 2 weeks before he died. He loved me until the end, Catherine said softly. I was so angry for so long. Angry he chose the company over us. Angry he let fear control him. But reading these letters, he was just scared. Terrified of failing, of losing everything, of being forgotten. He's not forgotten, Jennifer said. No. Thanks to you, he's remembered for what he hoped to be, not what he feared he was. Catherine looked at Jennifer. You gave him redemption. Not just in death, but in memory. That's a gift beyond measure. Jennifer hugged her, and they stood like that for a long moment, two women connected by a man neither had truly known, but both had learned to understand. The foundation's work continued to expand. By year 18, they'd helped more than 150,000 people. The original $295 million had been carefully invested and leveraged to generate nearly $2 billion in total impact, grants, loans, training programs, pension supplements, business support. Jennifer was invited to the White House to discuss federal policy on corporate bankruptcy support. She testified before Congress. She was featured in Time magazine's 100 Most Influential People. Universities offered her honorary degrees. But she remained grounded. She still lived in the modest Fort Worth house she'd bought in year 2. Still drove a practical car. Still paid herself a reasonable nonprofit salary. The wealth belonged to the foundation, to the mission, to the people it served. Lily, now in her mid-20s, had followed her mother's path. She'd studied nonprofit management and social impact investing. She worked for the foundation, learning the systems and relationships that made it function. One evening, mother and daughter sat in Jennifer's office at the old RadioShack building, reviewing applications. Mom, Lily said, do you ever think about what would have happened if Caroline Foster hadn't bought the building? If she hadn't given it to you? Jennifer considered the question. Every day. I'd probably still be working retail, struggling to make rent, wondering if I'd ever catch a break. Do you think you would have found another way? Maybe. Eventually. But it wouldn't have been this. Jennifer gestured around the office, at the building, at everything they'd built. This required the treasure. It required Harding's planning in fear and hope. It required Caroline's generosity. It required 100 impossible coincidences aligning perfectly. So it was luck? Partly. But luck only matters if you're prepared to use it. I could have kept that money. Hidden it. Lived like a queen. But Harding's letter asked me to be better than that. And somehow, I was strong enough to try. Lily smiled. You're a hero to a lot of people, you know. Jennifer shook her head. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who found treasure and chose not to waste it. The real heroes are the people who rebuilt their lives. Who took our training and created careers. Who didn't give up even when everything fell apart. She looked at her daughter. Someday, this foundation will be yours to run. You'll face decisions I can't predict. But remember why it exists. Remember Julian Harding, who died afraid he'd wasted his life. Remember that every dollar we spend represents someone's second chance. Don't waste it. I won't, Mom. I promise. The foundation's 20th anniversary brought another milestone. Jennifer announced she was stepping down as executive director. She'd remain on the board, but the day-to-day leadership would transfer to Lily. I'm not retiring, Jennifer told the assembled staff and board. But I'm 58 years old. I've spent 20 years building this. It's time to let the next generation lead it forward. Lily accepted the role with a speech that brought tears to Jennifer's eyes. My mother taught me that treasure isn't about money, it's about what we do with the opportunities we're given. The Harding Legacy Fund exists because one desperate woman was brave enough to bid on an impossible dream. Because one terrified CEO hid a fortune and hoped someone worthy would find it. Because of a chain of generosity that started long before I was born. I promise to honor that chain. To help people the way my mother was helped. To build on the foundation she created. And to remember, always, that we're stewards of something bigger than ourselves. Jennifer watched her daughter take the reins and felt something she hadn't felt in years, peace. She'd done what Harding asked. She'd honored his memory, helped his victims, turned his fear into hope. She'd succeeded. In year 23, Jennifer received a letter from a woman in Oregon. The letter was 3 pages long, handwritten, detailed. The woman's name was Sarah, and she'd lost her accounting job when her company went bankrupt in 2008. She'd applied to the Harding Legacy Fund in year 5, received job retraining support, and rebuilt her career as a financial advisor. "I'm writing to tell you that last month, I made my first $1 million, Sarah wrote. Not from salary, from investments I made using strategies I learned in your program. And I've decided to establish my own foundation, modeled on yours, to help people affected by the 2008 financial crisis. You gave me a second chance. Now I'm giving second chances to others. That's how it's supposed to work, isn't it?" The chain continues. Jennifer read the letter 3 times, then walked up to the 5th floor one last time. She sat in Julian Harding's chair, in his apartment, and pulled out the worn copy of his letter she'd carried for 23 years. "We did it," she whispered. "Your treasure didn't just help people, it inspired them. They're paying it forward. Creating new foundations, new programs, new chains of generosity. Your legacy isn't just the $295 million you hid. It's the ripple effects that will continue long after I'm gone." She folded the letter carefully and placed it back in her purse. Then she walked to the window and looked out at Fort Worth. The city had grown significantly in 2 decades. New buildings, new businesses, new life. And at the center of it all, the old RadioShack headquarters still stood, no longer abandoned, no longer forgotten, but vibrant with purpose. A symbol of redemption. A reminder that failure isn't final, that second chances are real, that one person's fear can become another person's hope. Jennifer thought about the journey. From a courthouse parking lot, desperate and drowning, to this moment, standing in a building she owned, leading a movement she'd created, watching her daughter continue work that would outlast them all. She thought about the people involved. Caroline Foster, who'd seen her potential and given her a chance. Catherine Harding, who'd loved a man despite his flaws and helped Jennifer understand him. Julian Harding himself, who'd died terrified but left behind exactly what the world needed. And she thought about the 200,000 people the foundation had now helped. Each one with their own story of loss and recovery. Each one a ripple in a pond that kept expanding. The door opened behind her. Lily stepped in, holding a tablet. "Mom, we just got notification of a major donation. $50 million from the Gates Foundation. They want to help us expand internationally." Jennifer smiled. "What did I tell you? Once the model works, the resources follow. What do you want to do with it?" "I was thinking, we've focused on corporate bankruptcy victims, but what about people affected by climate disasters? Or automation? Or AI disruption? The same principles apply. People losing livelihoods through no fault of their own, needing help to transition. Then do it. Expand the mission. Evolve. That's how organizations stay relevant." Lily hesitated. "Are you sure? This changes what Harding intended. Harding intended for someone to help people he couldn't help. The specific people don't matter as much as the principle, using wealth to create second chances. If you're doing that, you're honoring his legacy." After Lily left, Jennifer stayed in the apartment a while longer. She thought about writing her own letter, something for the next person who'd lead this foundation, decades from now. Someone who'd need to understand the history, the purpose, the chain of generosity that started with a terrified CEO and a desperate single mother. She pulled out a notebook and began writing. To whoever leads the Harding Legacy Fund in the future. Jennifer sank into the chair beside her. Long 23 years. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over Fort Worth. After a while, Rachel said, "Do you ever regret it?" "Regret what?" "Not keeping the money. Not living like a billionaire. Not taking a few million for yourself." Jennifer considered the question seriously. "Sometimes I wonder what that life would have been like. The travel, the luxury, the freedom from worry. But then I think about the alternative. What if I'd kept it all? What if I'd ignored Harding's letter? You'd be rich. I'd be empty. The money wouldn't have meant anything because I'd have gotten it by accident, by luck, by stumbling into something I didn't deserve. But this, Jennifer gestured vaguely at everything around them, at the life she'd built, at the foundation that bore Harding's name. This I earned. By honoring someone's dying wish. By helping people. By choosing generosity over greed. You're a better person than most people would have been. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just someone who was desperate enough to understand what second chances really mean. They finished their wine as darkness fell. Inside, Jennifer's phone buzzed with notifications, staff updates, board messages, donation confirmations. The work never stopped. Even in retirement, she remained connected to the foundation, to the mission, to the chain. That night, Jennifer dreamed of the courthouse parking lot. She was 35 again, sitting in her old Honda, watching the auction-goers gather. But this time, when Caroline Foster knocked on her window, instead of offering her the building, she asked a different question. If you found treasure, what would you do with it? Dream Jennifer answered without hesitation, I'd give it away. Not all at once, not recklessly, but deliberately. I'd use it to help people who are where I am now, desperate, drowning, needing just one chance to prove themselves. I'd build something that lasts longer than me. Something that matters. Caroline smiled. Then you're exactly the person who deserves to find it. Jennifer woke at dawn, the dream vivid in her mind. She understood now, in a way she perhaps hadn't fully grasped before, that she'd been chosen not by accident but by character. Caroline had seen something in her that day in the parking lot. Harding had written his letter hoping someone like her would find it. The treasure hadn't found her randomly, it had found her because she was someone who'd use it right. That realization settled something deep inside her. The last lingering question, why me? Finally had an answer. Not because she was special or deserving in any cosmic sense, but because she was someone who'd experienced desperation and would remember that feeling when she had the power to help others. The Foundation's 25th anniversary gala was the largest yet. They'd rented out the Fort Worth Convention Center, filled it with 1,000 people whose lives had been touched by Harding's treasure and Jennifer's stewardship. The guest list read like a testament to hope: CEOs who'd started as unemployed factory workers, teachers who'd retrained from retail, entrepreneurs whose businesses began with, "My name is Jennifer Chen. 23 years ago, I bought this building for $45,000. I was broke, desperate, and taking a chance I couldn't afford to lose. I found $295 million hidden beneath the floor in a letter from a dead CEO asking me to help people he'd failed. This is what I've learned. Treasure isn't about money. It's about what we do with the opportunities we're given. Second chances aren't rare, they're everywhere. The question is whether we're brave enough to take them and generous enough to give them. Failure isn't final. Julian Harding thought his life was wasted, that he'd destroyed more than he'd built. But his hidden treasure has now helped 200,000 people. His failure became the foundation for enormous good. Legacy isn't what we intend to leave behind, it's what others do with what we give them. If you're reading this, you've been entrusted with something precious. Not money, though that's part of it. You've been entrusted with hope. With the responsibility to help people when they're drowning, to give them the tools to rebuild, to believe in them when they've stopped believing in themselves. Don't waste it. Don't hoard it. Don't use it for your own glory. Use it to create second chances. Because that's what Julian Harding wanted. That's what I've spent my life doing. And that's what you'll carry forward. The chain continues with you. Make it count. Jennifer Chen. October 15th. 2047-inch. She sealed the letter in an envelope and placed it in the museum display, next to Harding's original letter in Catherine's collection. Future generations would read them both, would understand the chain of generosity and responsibility that connected them all. Jennifer descended from the 5th floor for what she knew might be the last time. Her knees weren't what they used to be. The stairs got harder every year. But she'd made the pilgrimage faithfully for 23 years, and today felt like closure. In the main lobby, the museum was busy with visitors. A school group listened to a docent explain Julian Harding's story. A young woman stood transfixed by the glass floor panel showing the vault beneath. An elderly couple read the wall text about second chances. Jennifer watched them and smiled. This was what mattered. Not the money, not the recognition, not even the numbers of people helped, though those were important. What mattered was that the story continued. That people learned from Harding's mistakes and Jennifer's choices. That hope remained alive. She left the building and drove home through familiar streets. The modest house she'd bought 2 decades ago, the one she'd never felt the need to upgrade. The yard where Lily had played as a child, now quiet. Rachel was waiting on the porch, 2 glasses of wine already poured. Her sister, who'd risked everything to give Jennifer that first chance. Who'd co-signed the loan, put up her house as collateral, believed when no one else did. Long day? Rachel asked. Foundation microloans. Retirees living comfortably because their pensions had been supplemented. Children who'd attended college because their parents received job training. Jennifer, now 60, stood on stage beside Lily, now 34 and firmly established as the foundation's leader. Mother and daughter looked remarkably alike, same determined expression, same careful intelligence, same fundamental kindness. 25 years ago, Jennifer began, I was drowning. Not metaphorically, actually drowning. No money, no job, no hope. I came to a courthouse auction because I'd run out of other options. And I met a woman named Caroline Foster who saw something in me I didn't see in myself. Jennifer found Caroline in the audience. The elderly woman, now in her 90s, smiled back. Caroline gave me a building I couldn't afford. In that building, I found treasure I didn't deserve. And attached to that treasure was a letter from a man I'd never met, asking me to be better than he'd been. I've spent 25 years trying to honor that request. Some days I succeeded. Some days I failed. But every day, I remembered why I was doing this, because people are drowning everywhere. Because second chances matter. Because generosity creates ripples that extend far beyond what we can see. Jennifer paused, emotion thick in her throat. Julian Harding died thinking his life was a failure. He died alone, afraid, convinced he'd destroyed more than he'd built. But he was wrong. So wrong. Because his life created this, she gestured to the massive crowd, 200,000 second chances. Billions of dollars in economic impact. A model copied internationally. Children who grew up secure because their parents got help rebuilding after bankruptcy. That's not failure. That's legacy. That's redemption. That's proof that the worst moments of our lives don't define us, what we do next defines us. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. People who'd been helped by the foundation, people who'd helped run it, people who'd simply heard the story and been inspired, they all stood, clapping, crying, celebrating a chain of generosity that started with fear and ended with hope. After the gala, Jennifer returned to the old RadioShack headquarters one final time. The building was quiet, closed for the night. She used her key to enter, disabled the security system, and climbed slowly to the 5th floor. Julian Harding's apartment had been maintained perfectly. Exactly as he'd left it, except for the additions, the letters from Catherine, the journal entries, Jennifer's own letter to future leaders. It was a museum exhibit, but it was also a memorial. Jennifer sat in his chair and pulled out the original letter he'd written, the one she'd found 25 years ago. The paper was yellowing now, the plastic sleeve showing wear. But the words remained clear. This wealth is yours now. Legally, morally, completely. But I'm asking you to do something with it. Don't hoard it. Don't hide from the world the way I did. Use it to build something. To help someone. To prove that failure isn't the end. I did it, Jennifer whispered to the empty room. I used it right. I helped 200,000 people. I built something that will outlast me. I proved that your failure wasn't the end, it was a beginning. She sat quietly for a long time, feeling the weight of 25 years settle around her. The fear and hope of that first day. The terror of opening the vault. The overwhelming responsibility of finding $295 million. The choice to honor Harding's letter instead of keeping the wealth. The years of building, growing, evolving. It had been the hardest thing she'd ever done. And the most meaningful. Jennifer stood, her knees protesting, and walked to the window. Fort Worth glittered below, alive with light and possibility. Somewhere in this city, someone was drowning right now. Someone desperate, afraid, wondering if they'd ever catch a break. And because of what Jennifer had built, because of what Harding had hidden, because of a chain of generosity that started decades ago, that person had a chance. Not a guarantee, but a chance. Someone to call, somewhere to turn, a foundation dedicated to helping people rebuild. That was enough. That was everything. Jennifer descended from the 5th floor for the last time. She'd made her peace with Julian Harding's ghost. She'd honored his memory, fulfilled his dying wish, proved that his life hadn't been wasted. Now it was time to let go. To trust that Lily would carry it forward. That the foundation would endure. That the chain would continue. She drove home through quiet streets, thinking about treasure and second chances. About desperate gambles that paid off. About the difference between finding wealth and earning it through how you use it. Most people would say she'd been lucky. That she'd stumbled into a fortune through impossible circumstances. And that was true, in a way. But luck was only part of the story. The real story was choice. Jennifer had chosen to bid on an impossible building. She'd chosen to explore every inch of it. She'd chosen to honor Harding's letter instead of ignoring it. She'd chosen generosity over greed, purpose over comfort, legacy over luxury. Those choices had transformed a random discovery into redemption. Not just for Harding, though certainly for him. But for Jennifer too. She'd been drowning, and the treasure had saved her, not by making her rich, but by giving her purpose. At home, Jennifer found Lily waiting with champagne. Her daughter had let herself in, was sitting on the porch, smiling. "I thought we should celebrate," Lily said. 25 years. 200,000 people. A movement that's changing how America handles corporate bankruptcy. That's worth toasting. They clinked glasses and drank. After a moment, Lily said, "Mom, I have a question." "Anything. If you could go back, if you could stand in that courthouse parking lot again, knowing everything that would happen, would you still bid on that building?" Jennifer didn't hesitate. Yes. Even knowing how hard it would be? How much responsibility? How many people would depend on you? Especially knowing that. Because the alternative is living with unused potential. With wealth I didn't earn and didn't deserve. With the knowledge that I'd found something extraordinary and squandered it. Jennifer set down her glass. "I was drowning, Lily. Really drowning. And that building, that treasure, that letter from a dead CEO, it saved me. Not by making me rich, but by giving me something to build. Something that mattered." Do you think Harding knew? When he wrote that letter, do you think he understood someone like you would find it? I think he hoped. I think he spent his last days terrified he'd wasted his life, desperate to believe that his hidden treasure would end up maturing. And I hope, that wherever he is, he knows it worked. That his fear and planning and hope created something beautiful. They sat in comfortable silence, mother and daughter, watching the stars emerge. Two women connected by treasure and purpose, carrying forward a legacy that started with failure and transformed into hope. "I'm proud of you," Jennifer said suddenly. "For taking over the foundation. For evolving it. For understanding that the mission is bigger than any one person's story." "I learned from the best," Lily replied. "You took treasure and turned it into transformation. You took a dead man's regret and turned it into redemption. That's everything, Mom. That's the whole point of being alive, to take what we're given and make it matter." Jennifer felt tears prick her eyes. Her daughter understood. Truly understood. The foundation would thrive under Lily's leadership. The chain would continue. The ripples would expand. She'd done what she set out to do. She'd honored Julian Harding's memory. She'd used his treasure wisely. She'd helped 200,000 people find second chances. And now, finally, she could rest. As the night deepened and the champagne dwindled, Jennifer thought about the courthouse parking lot one last time. About sitting in a Honda Odyssey with $12,000 and no future. About Caroline Foster knocking on her window and changing everything. About opening a vault and finding not just wealth, but purpose. Some people search their whole lives for meaning and never find it. Jennifer had stumbled onto it by accident, or had she? Maybe there are no accidents. Maybe desperation and courage and generosity create their own kind of magic. Maybe treasure finds those who'll use it right. She'd never know for certain. But she knew this: she'd been given a gift, and she'd honored it. She'd been given a second chance, and she'd used it to give second chances to hundreds of thousands of others. That was enough. That was everything. That was a life well lived. Jennifer Chen had bought a building for $45,000 and found $295 million beneath the floor. But what she'd really found was purpose. Redemption. Proof that failure isn't final, that second chances are real, that one person's courage can transform thousands of lives. And that, in the end, is the only treasure that truly matters. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.